Oh my god, we're back at the Spotify studios today. This is very exciting. Hello guys, and welcome back to the newest episode of Girls Plus Club Poddy with your host Rosie Breen and a very psychological guest. Does that even do you justice?
I love that.
We've got Zoe Mallett here today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I am a psychologist, I am a business culture consultant and a presenter. Everything I do sits under the umbrella of psychology, and my main mission is to always help people get to know themselves, to get people talking,
Yes,
and to help people understand how they can live their lives a little bit easier.
yes, and feel a little bit better about yourself.
Yeah.
And guys, to really help you understand why sometimes you sit there and you're like, I'm fucking bullying myself right now. Like, I'm thinking so negatively and I just don't know, A, why I'm doing this because I don't want to think negatively, and B, why am I thinking these things when there are so many good things to think about, you know, in those like horrible situations where they're in like a changing room or you're in like a social situation that doesn't make you feel like 100% yourself. Maybe you're unfamiliar with some people in the area and just like different situations. Why do our brains automatically think of the negatives when in reality, like, we're positive people, we want to have a good time, we are like thriving for the best for ourselves, but still we can't like knock or shake these negative thoughts away. And Zoe is here today because she's really gonna help us sit down, sit back and understand where all of this negativity comes from, how, you know, we can combat it and how we can move forward in a healthier and happier way.
Yeah.
Lovely. So how did you get started? Tell us a little bit of background.
It was a very organic way into where I'm at today, and I didn't think what I'd be doing today. Like, I didn't think like 4 years ago I'd be sat like doing podcasts talking about it, but I always had a hugely like curious mind around how people behave, people's emotions and people's stories.
Okay.
And I've always, from a really young age, always been that person who's asking like the deeper questions of like, oh, how did that make you feel? And like, how come you did that? And
were you like naturally invested in like the further thought?
Yeah. And I think that came from a place of like, when I was younger, I think I felt quite alone, and I was always really curious about understanding if other people felt like that, or if under other people, how I could maybe live a little bit of a life like them. So I think I was always like really curious of like, okay, so how did you get to that, and how come you feel like this? And so it was like through the lens of that and just curiosity.
Are you an only child?
No, I've got an older brother.
Oh, is he much older, or like how come you felt, do you think, so alone?
He's a couple of years older. I think there was just a lot going on in my family. And with that, it just meant that there was a lot of attention elsewhere.
I see.
Yeah,
I see.
So it was mainly
quite isolating for
quite
you.
Isolating, exactly. So that's always been like a big part of me. And I then was working in the creative events industry, and I loved it because it was really creative, and that's like a huge part of me as well.
As we can see by your outfit today, let me say, this girl has rocked up to the studios in double denim with the glossiest lip gloss I have ever seen, and it's just absolute slay. And I haven't even talked about your shoes yet, because what even is that? Like iridescent? Like, it's not a colour.
These are just some like TNs, but these get so much like airtime.
Mate, I love this fit. You're killing it.
These are actually my Raven shoes. I usually go Raven in these.
I love it. Oh my God. The other day, right? So I surprised Henry with like tickets. Guys, you know, we went to Manchester the other week. I surprised Henry with tickets to Patrick Topping because he loves Patrick Topping. And I was like, right, it's on at Trick are hosting, and it's on at the Warehouse Project in Manchester. I was like, This is going to be banging. Like, this is going to be so good. I've never been before. I was like, this is going to be wicked. To be honest with you, I'm not a raver. Like, I'm much more of like a Ben Howard. I'm getting into Ocean Alley, Frank Ocean, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he is much more like house music. And I'm, trying to be a good girlfriend, like get into it and just embrace what he enjoys so we can enjoy it together. Anyways, we show up to Warehouse Project. Tell me why we're the oldest people there. Everyone was like 16 and like neon bras and tiny little skirts, and like literally could see so so many bum cheeks. I even feel old saying this right now because I'd be so annoyed at myself if I was like 5 years younger hearing myself speak right now. But we felt so old to the point where we were actually there for about 15-20 minutes.
No.
Didn't even stay for Patrick and we left.
No.
We left. I was like, I can't do it.
Wait, how old are you?
27.
That is not, you can still be raving at 27.
You can, but I was in a puffer jacket down to my feet and not like cool vibes, more like Arsene Wenger vibes. Like I am, auntie over here, freezing, isn't drinking alcohol at the moment. Like my tits were literally going to fall off, like absolutely freezing. And I just felt so out of place. I felt so uncomfortable. But on the same note, I started my period that day.
Yeah.
I was hella bloated. We had spent the whole morning and afternoon with an old colleague of mine, actually a really good friend of mine who has moved to Manchester, just had a baby, and so we're out not winter wonderland, like the winter markets with her husband, her baby, eating like bratwurst, drinking mulled wine and just like being very wholesome. Then came back to the hotel, started my period, and I'm like, okay, let's go raving. And I was like, I'm just not with that. I am not on that vibe. And to be honest, a different day, a different night, I would have loved it.
Yeah.
But that weekend, I was like, this is not for me. I'm really sorry. But I wanted to still like go out and have a really good time. Yeah. It's the whole reason we're in fucking Manchester for the weekend. And we just couldn't do it. Henry was the same. He was like, I just feel like it was so heavy. Like, and it wasn't house music that he kind of enjoyed as well. It was because all the like the lineup, not the lineups. What's the word? The people who start, the supporting acts. Oh my God. Yeah. God, I went off then. All the supporting acts were like, just awful, if I'm honest.
Okay.
Like we heard one of them actually. I'm saying all of the supporting acts. That's so rude. We heard the first supporting act.
Okay.
And so
what time did you get there?
Literally like 10 p.m. Yeah. I don't think he comes on till 1 or 12 or something. And that's the other thing. Since we got Billy the dog, I'm like a 9 p.m. bedtime girl. And so I'm like, I just feel like this is the wrong time in my life. Like maybe if we did this 3 months ago, I would have been absolutely gone the whole night. I would have been wrecked, absolutely loved it. It would have been amazing. Maybe in 6 months' time that will happen again. But that night,
Yeah, I don't think you should completely write off raving.
No.
I think just take that one time as like, at least
that was an experience.
At least you tried it. And I've been to Warehouse Project once years ago. And I loved it. I don't know how I'd feel if I went back now, but I do know what you mean. Like I'm 31, so like I've noticed a bit of a difference sometimes if I go to places.
Yeah.
That I'm like, oh, okay, I'm the older one now.
Group.
Yeah,
that's how I felt.
Yeah.
We went next door and it was Freight Island, and I don't know if you've ever been there. If anybody listening has ever been there before, fucking go! It is so good. It's like it's attached to the same building. I don't know how they do their acoustics in there because we could not hear anything.
Oh really?
Yeah, and it's attached to the same building. And I went in and there's like S Club 7 playing, Mamma Mia playing, and I was like, I'm in my element right now.
That's
I'm
like
so
my last
happy.
nightmare. I would have been like, I'm going back in to Warehouse Project.
Happy.
I'll catch you lot later.
Oh no, it was too good. It was too good. But then Henry got bored because that's not his vibe, and he got bored. And I was like, "Fairs, I asked you to leave the other place, so I guess we're gonna leave this place too." So then we went home, got pizza, and literally went to bed that night. Anyways, I can't even remember what I was talking. Oh yeah, Raven outfit. So banging outfit. But more importantly, let's talk about the psychology behind negative thinking. So Zoe, it's been a little while, I won't lie, but for the majority of my life, up until the last like 3-4 years, whenever I'd go shopping, something that I love doing, by the way, I would just feel like so nervous and find it so nerve-wracking because I knew every single time I went into the changing room, or if I bought something and I didn't try it on, it would never fit me if I like risked it kind of thing and just took it home and tried it on. And it would never fit. Or if something didn't fit and it was like a size medium, but I'm supposed to be a size 10 to 12, why is it not fitting? And it's me thinking, oh, I've gained weight. Oh, I need to change my body. Like I was just always having like a negative and like awful experience when I was shopping, when I was trying to buy clothes. And it would come to the point where I just kind of like stopped shopping. Or if I did shop, then I'd only go online and I'd buy like 4 sizes, and I would go 2 sizes above, 2 sizes below, or whatever, just to find like the size that fit. But even if a size fit, but let's say it was a size 16, I'd return it because I didn't want to be a size 16. Like, why the fuck did I feel so shit. And like, why do girls, like boys as well, like why do people feel so shit about having to up their sizing in clothes but feel so crap because you go shopping and things don't fit? Like why are you automatically thinking like, okay, I'm not good enough, I've gained weight, and it's a bad thing when it's not a fucking bad thing even if you have? And why am I feeling like so negative about this whole situation when yes, it's frustrating you haven't found something that can fit, but you will find something that fits. Like you will, if you go to the next shop and then the next shop, like you will. I just don't get it.
So I think when it comes to your like self-body image and how we feel about ourselves, I feel a lot of that is based around social pressures and what has been, generally speaking, over a lot of like our lifetime, a certain image or a certain body shape that people should are pleased to, right? Or it's been in a lot of like the media or social media. So I think those social pressures take a huge part of that up, and that then makes people feel that they are not normal. And I'm like doing that obviously in quotation marks because there is no normal. And the reason why we all want to fit in is because we're social creatures and we want to be able to be relatable and for people to accept us within their groups.
Okay.
And a lot of that, then psychologically speaking, that comes back to the fact that we need to be in groups to be able to survive.
But when you say going back to it, you mean like years and years ago, like cavemen years?
Yeah, so when we were cave people, we were developing, right? When we were developing as humans, we created a lot of makeup in our DNA to help us survive. And today, your body's main prerogatives are to survive. Like that's one of the biggest things that your body is trying to do, is to try to keep you alive day in, day out.
Okay.
And where I think that starts to become tricky is that our minds can tell us things that we think are trying to sabotage us, are thinking negatively, and are trying to make us feel shit. And a lot of what our bodies and what our minds are trying to do is linking it back to the fact that we're just trying to survive, right? And your body's main prerogative is to make you survive day in, day out. So there could then be a link between how you feel in that changing room when you're trying something on and it doesn't fit. There will be then ideas that you have that makes you feel that you're not good enough, and that then trickles back to the fact that if you're not good enough, then you might not be accepted into certain social groups. And if you're not accepted into certain social groups, our mind is thinking the worst because it has to think the worst to keep you alive. So it's saying, your mind kind of goes through this like thread of thoughts. Yeah. And it's like, it can start from, I don't look very good in this. I'm not going to be able to go out, and because I won't be able to feel good in it when I am out. Yeah. That means that, I'm going to be rejected from, I don't know, guys, girls, whoever, groups of friends. And your mind will then trickle down this thread, and it will think, okay, that means that it always just constantly thinks of the worst case.
Is it almost like if you're not accepted into the group, then like back in the day, you were like at a higher risk of dying, like not surviving. Absolutely. And that's why when I'm standing in that changing room and I'm like, why does this not fit? Why does this top like not go over my head? I naturally think negatively about myself, and want myself to be different because I think I need to be different to be better, to be able to fit. Yeah. What the fuck, man?
Because your mind is thinking like, if I'm not in this group, if I'm not going to be accepted, then the likelihood is then I'll be rejected from that group, and if I'm rejected from that group, then I'll be on my own. And back way when we were like cave people, for example. Oh my God, yeah. Like, if you were on your own, you weren't your chances of survival were so slim.
Fuck.
So that's why we created rejection. So
We created
the feeling of rejection.
Guys, you know I hate to be rejected. It's like my
but that means that your mind is working right. Like that means that's
God.
In a way it's a good thing, right? And I'll explain why. So we developed rejection as part of our
ready.
We developed rejection as a part of our DNA because we realized that in the group, we needed to be in groups to be able to survive. So we need to be in these packs, we need to be in tribes. And if we were rejected from those tribes, it meant that your survival rate just completely plummeted. So we created these feelings of rejection, which sometimes physically hurt, because we wanted rejection to feel so painful that if you ever did anything that potentially created some sort of threat of rejection, it would hurt so much that you wouldn't do it again, so that then you wouldn't be rejected from that group.
Fucking hell. Okay, that does make a lot of sense. It does. But it's shit because over like the years of my life, if I'm in a situation, you guys, you know, like I used to have such a fear of like rejection when it came to like friendships, and that fear of rejection put me into a corner where I no longer like reached out and made effort and would make the first move when it came to friendships, because I was so fearful of that rejection that could or couldn't happen. And it's like total self-sabotage. And I'm like sitting here like 4 times a month, every single Wednesday, telling the girls like, listen, you got to put your first foot forward. You got to just go for it. And you got to like not be fearful of that rejection or not be fearful of stepping out your comfort zone. Yeah. But it's so scary to the point where like years ago, it pushed me into a corner and I didn't feel like I could step out of it. So why, like I understand that's come now, I understand that's come from a place of like survival from back in the day. But why to this day, when we know society doesn't operate that way and the way that we live our lives is not based on survival of the fittest in that sense, why do we still put ourselves in these corners, in these boxes, and like feel it so deeply and harshly in our chest when you're like, that friend clearly doesn't want to be your friend, and that just hurts so much.
Yeah. And I think that we've evolved as humans quite rapidly, and our processes of what we developed, you know, our process of thinking, if you get rejected, it means, you know, this is really simple terms, obviously, really simplified. But that thought process of, if I'm rejected from this group, it means that then my chances of survival are going to be low, because I'm not going to be able to eat, I'm not going to be able to hunt, I'm not going to be able to have anywhere to sleep. And then the likelihood of my demise is quite high, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, you still have those, it's ingrained in our DNA, right? It's how we operate. So we still have those feelings, but obviously we're not in our society, and most people are not in that point where it means that if you are rejected from a social group, that you will then, your chances of survival are low. But our minds haven't caught up with where we are today.
Oh, so it's like we've almost developed as a society quicker.
Yeah, we've developed
our
super
DNA has kind of transferred.
Yeah, but this happens in all generations, right? It takes a long time for our bodies to adapt and develop to our environments. And at the moment, you know, our environments are changing at such a rapid pace that it is going to take us a while to get used to it. But we eventually will get used to it. But then something else
it'll be different.
But then something else will happen.
Do you think we're like, this is almost like a clear, and I don't know if you're even going to want to answer this, but like a clear sign that in black and white, we are developing too fast, like in the world? Like technology, society, social norms, like everything is just moving that little bit too fast, or maybe way too fast, to the point where we as humans, in our brains and in our minds and our hearts, we physically cannot keep up.
I don't have too much insight into it. I would say that technology, everybody can agree, has advanced us quite rapidly.
Yeah, massively.
And it is about us. You know, there are positives to that and there are negatives. And in every situation and every new sorts of environments we go through as a society, there are always going to be pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
I think there are lots of pros around the technology that's being developed, but then the biggest form of negativity that I see from the work that I do is how lonely it's making people.
Yes.
And that is something that I can comment on because I have experience with working with people, and I'm doing lots of research into society and how to make people happier and more productive and more motivated and be able to like enjoy their lives a little bit more.
Yeah. The shit
And it
we
always,
love.
yeah, we love that. And it always, at the moment, a huge part of it comes back to loneliness. And the World Health Organization, they've just put out a statement about how loneliness is one of the biggest global threats at the moment. So,
oh my God,
that has been impacted by technology, but it also, we are social creatures. Like, we are supposed to be together.
Yeah.
And if you look at like the passage and the timeline of where we are today, we've gone from being in big groups and villages and communities to
even in like classrooms, in university lectures,
exactly,
to being in a job.
Exactly.
You could be working solo with like 3 other people on your team.
Yeah, exactly. And before we all used to live very close together, and now people's main aims are to have a big old house just for themselves and just for their family. So like you're separating it, and we didn't used to, we didn't really used to have that, I'm talking way back when, right?
Well, yeah, go on. Sorry. I was totally going to interrupt. Okay, sorry, let me interrupt. When you're talking about moving away from homes, moving away from families, like after I went to India in February, this is like to see all of my mum's side of the family, meet a lot of my family. It's all very much like that. Like everyone still pretty much lives in the same village. Everyone lives around the corner from each other, and everyone is very heavily involved in each other's lives. And like the United Kingdom, after getting back from India and having like been to America and been to some other countries around the world over the last like 10 years, I've realized how far advanced the United Kingdom is in that sense. And you're so right, like even my personal goal is to have a huge house in the countryside with 1,000 dogs and raise my children, raise my family there with Henry. But back in the day, the goal was for people to like live together, and that's what people naturally did. They stuck together because you're stronger in a pack, like you said. And I do think that there are so many places in the world where actually a lot of people are happier and living more joyful lives because they have those simple things that are almost like the root of like human existence, of sticking together, of community, of being a pack and being like having that sense of unity and belonging. Whereas like now the more I succeed, and I say that with quotation marks because that's just success to someone's eyes. Success is only in the eye of the beholder. Oh, see how I used that other quote? I see. Okay. And so taking that, I've actually, to my family in India, I'm probably not that very successful, even though we've got a nice house and we've got, these things for ourselves. And it's just looking at it from a different lens, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And like success is defined so differently from, culture to culture to person to person. And you have to try and just decide what success feels like for you. There's so much research though, and they all come back to like quite fundamental things. And you hear of all these research studies that have been done on people throughout their lives, and people who are about to pass away, and they're asked about their happiness levels and what they wish they'd done more and less of. And it all centers around people who have a community or have communities or have a family or have like friends around them, feel that, or just have a sense of belonging, and that can come in any form. That is the thing that really keeps you content throughout your life. And but then with technology, for example, my family from Bristol, all of my family live in Bristol, no one's ever left. I'm the only person that's left.
No way.
And like I love living in London, but I really miss them. And I go back and try and see them as much as I can. But luckily I have WhatsApp. I can call them, like video call them.
You can FaceTime, yeah.
And that's because of technology.
Yeah. So it helps, and it's not the same, but it has enabled you to live a different life that you didn't necessarily feel like you could live in Bristol.
Exactly. But I also think then that in that sense, if you can almost then rely on that a little bit too much. So it can feel that you're really close to them, and it can feel that I'm still really involved with them, because I talk to them every single day over WhatsApp all throughout the day. Like me and my mum and my dad are messaging. And then I'll call them as much as I can. And that can potentially give like a false sort of connection. Yeah. And I think it still is a connection. And that still is community. And that is some people's only resource of being able to contact their families and their friends. But
it's not the same.
It's not the same as like you sitting in the room, being there,
like physically.
Yeah. And like having.
This is why I really like believe in like energies and like people's energy having a huge impact on you, because sometimes even being in the room with like my sister can make me feel a lot better than, you know, being on the phone to her, even if we're not speaking to each other in the room, but we're speaking on the phone. Like it's different. And I think it's because you have that physical energy. And I like visually imagine like energy balls bouncing off of each other and like merging and sharing.
It is. And you know, like if you hug somebody, like that gives you a huge boost of endorphins and dopamine, which is obviously the happy chemicals. Yeah. So like it's not the same as you hug it. Like you can tell someone you love them over the phone, but if you have like a hug with them for like, you know, 10, 20, 30, even 30 seconds, right? That gives you a bigger hit, and that's like that energy bouncing, right? Because that's that dopamine going up. That's your cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone, which is then being reduced, and you're physically getting these happy chemicals like popping off in your body. So that is that energy exchange that you were talking about. And I you can definitely, like, I'd come off the phone to my dad and I feel happy, like, because we always have really great conversations, but it's not the same as when I'm in the room with him and I can give him a big hug and we can have a laugh.
I totally relate to this, because like why I started Girls Club Homies was the realization that I was actually really isolated, and I'd isolated myself like physically by moving to a town. You know, I was just telling Zoe on the way here that we're moving house. Well, by the time you guys are listening to this, actually we would have moved and we would have been living there for 2 weeks, I believe. So I felt really isolated, and I didn't realise that's what I had been feeling. And the reason that I never put it down to loneliness and isolation is because of my social platforms. Like I speak to people every day, all day, every day. I'm on the phone to people, I'm emailing people, I'm FaceTiming like my sister during the day, I'm meeting like the odd friend here and there for lunch, but that would only happen like maybe once a month. But then I'm constantly leaving the house and I'm going to events and I'm doing stuff at the weekend. But it was all at such a fast pace that I almost felt like I realised I was feeling isolated throughout all of that, because I was never, one, stopping to be like present in the moment when I was with people physically, and two, when I was thinking that I was having that connection with people and I was having those interactions, it was all done through technology that I almost got sucked into that and got so lost and reliant on it that was my only way of connecting to people for a little while. And it was purely because I was not present for a very long time when it came to that like physical side of things, like you and I sitting here today. God, I've had so many podcast recordings, guys. I've had so many podcast recordings where I've sat in the room with the person and I'm thinking about the next thing I have to do after the podcast, or I'm thinking about the next thing that I have to do for the next recording. And I was doing that, but thinking about this person, but for the last recording, and I just have not been like present. And then realizing that I'd isolated myself in that sense, and then starting Girls Club Homies and really like focusing on connecting people and using online to bring it offline and helping girls, you know, whether they're like self-employed like me and don't have like a Christmas do, or they're just work from home girlies and just feel a little bit like isolated, or actually you can work in an office 5 days a week, you could just feel like you moved to a new area, or you have absolutely no reason but you just feel like you want to make new friends. This is the place to do it. And ever since I started that, it's really helped me to understand the importance of taking a step back, pausing, breathing, being present right there and then. And it was our first like event when we did it in September that made me realize that, because I had been working so hard with Brona in the lead up to the event. We were so excited. The event came and I was like, shit, like I'm literally standing in the room with 40 girls right now who are all here to like meet one another, make friends, even feeling isolated in some way. Like we all are going through the same thing. And I'm still thinking about like, okay, shit, are we on time for this? Are we on time for that? Like, no, stop and just breathe. And I just took like 10 minutes out in the back room at that event and I just breathed and I was like, right, I need to be present. And I just, from then on, and literally from then on, that point onwards, I have felt so much more present and like in the moment and experiencing these like day-to-day connections. And obviously we've moved now, but I'm actually moving tomorrow because we're secretly recording this a little bit early. But I'm really excited for moving because I feel like it will enable me to be more physically involved with a lot more people. Like I have all of my family in Reading, and that just really circles back to what you were saying, like that's what's drawn me back to Reading, because you guys know I've been egging Henry on for London for like so long, to the point where like London has been the goal. And then I realised actually we're going to be moving to Reading where all of my family live, like my cousins, my aunties, and Naya is only going to be like 45 minutes away, which is my sister's baby, by the way. And I'm so fucking excited, and I already feel like that sense of belonging and connection and community again, and I'm not even there yet, you know. And it really just come back to that, and that's what I realize my goal is to be with my people and to be within my community. So that's crazy,
and that's like huge. We're starting to see more and more how people are feeling so disconnected, and that's exactly what we need more events, we need more access to these types of communities. We need to empower people to be able to go and seek out these communities, because there are so many communities out there, and it does take a lot to be able to go on your own to a community that you don't know. You know, first off, you have to find it, then you have to kind of pluck up the courage to get yourself there. And it is awkward. Like, I recently started playing football, and I play with two different teams. So I've got two new communities, and I'm extroverted. I'm so outgoing. I'm confident. But those first few weeks,
you feel nervous.
Yeah, and I'm turning up and like everybody's got their friends already. Like everyone's chatting. Everyone's kind of got these jokes, and then I'm just kind of stood there not knowing anything about football. So I'm like so bad at football.
That's so funny.
I have never played it before. Like I don't know any of these people, and everyone was so lovely. Don't get me wrong. Everybody's always like, people were chatting to me, asking me questions, which is when you know you're in the right community. If they're can see that you're new, asking you how are you, like what are you doing, like do you know, this is how we do it, like that's when you know you're in a good place. But it took me a few weeks, right? And every week I had to kind of like get up, and I was like, right, I'm gonna go, even if it's a bit awkward. And it is awkward. It's awkward in those first few moments, right? It's awkward in those first few weeks, but then you start making those connections, and then you start feeling as a part of that community. But you have to put that effort in.
You have to take those steps.
And if there isn't a community out there that you think speaks to you, then you start your own.
That's it. That's what I felt like I needed to do with homies, because I couldn't find, like, there are insane communities on the internet, like Truly 20s, you've got Gals Who communities, and there's a few more that I've seen, like the Lonely Club, things like that. And I love, like, I can see the benefits, and I love each of them, and I'm involved in each of them to like an extent, but I didn't feel quite like it was exactly what I needed. And that's why I wanted to start Homies, because now I'm actually putting myself in positions where, and don't get me wrong guys, like I know, same as you, I'm quite a confident person, I'm extroverted, but I've still felt like it's been so nerve-wracking, even just launching it, even just telling people, inviting people, hoping people will join, and it's been amazing. But now to like go on to Facebook, and it sounds like so simple, go onto Facebook and go onto the page and introduce myself, and I'm like, hi guys, like I'm Rosie, this is why I've joined, like this is why I've started this is why I've been feeling this way, and I just want to meet like other girlies, like these are my hobbies, these are my interests, like is anybody else into these kind of things, and just putting that foot forward. And almost like exposing yourself and just like putting yourself out there, like can go so far into helping you find that community. And even in doing that, like so many of my close friends have come to me and be like, I've been feeling this exact same way, but like me, didn't know what it was and didn't know how to word it and didn't know exactly what they were feeling. Because I think isolation is a really weird thing to feel, because you're like, by human nature, you are still surrounded by people more often than not. And it's really weird to feel isolated and to identify it as isolation. And now I really understand myself a little bit better, firstly for why the fuck I'm moving back to Reading to be with my people, with my family, but also with homies, to like have that sense of belonging and to have that girl chat that, you know, like whether it's the football girls or the netball girls or the running girls, or maybe it's the girls that like staying in on a Thursday night and watching films and shit like that, read a book, like whatever. It's just nice to have those people around you that, you know, help you feel that sense of community, I guess, help you feel seen and heard and really validate those feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, like with communities, it does, your community can be 2 of you, 3 of you, 4 of you, it can be 100 of you. It doesn't necessarily have to be this like huge group of people for it to feel like a community. Like you bring the community to it, and the community is just that commitment to each other that you're gonna show up for each other and that you're gonna create a sense of belonging within each other.
That's lovely. So kind of going back a few steps, when it comes to even just putting your first step forward and trying to like immerse yourself into that community, why is it that like naturally you start thinking like the worst, like no one's gonna reply, no one's gonna care, no one's gonna even like be interested in being my friend, or what if like people think I'm silly for doing this, or what if I go to this event, like this is something that's so real actually, what if I turn up to this like girls club homies event and I've turned up on my own and everybody else has their friends there and like nobody wants to talk to me? Like why am I like me and like so many people naturally thinking of all of those negative outcomes instead of focusing on the positive, like by nature, you know? Why are we thinking of the negative first? And from what you've said already, I guess, you know, you're circling it back to way beyond time, dinosaur
way
years.
Before us.
Way before us, way before Facebook, when we're trying to survive. And I understand now that it is like ingrained into our DNA that we need to think negatively so that we can survive. But is there a way or like something that we can do to help us move forward in a more positive way, whilst understanding that yes, you're going to have these negative thoughts, but there is still that sense of control that you can do something about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to everything I always try and preach, and is what the work I do, which is targeted at, is the first thing I believe that can get people on the way to understanding themselves and therefore becoming a bit more happier and feeling more confident, etc. Is understanding the basic principles of the science and the psychology of your mind, and then implementing that into your daily life. So we've spoken about negative thoughts, and we spoke a lot about the rejection piece. In general, in every single day, we have up to 80,000 thoughts.
Sorry, 80,000?
Yeah.
Right.
And within those thoughts, around 83% of them are negative.
Get out. 80,000 and then 83%.
Yeah.
You've actually blown my mind.
Yeah. And then
80,000.
13% are repetitive from yesterday.
So you don't have an original thought, or what is that, like 4% left?
Yeah, which is then that room for like, it's between like 7 and 15% of like positive thoughts, like just naturally,
okay,
right?
without like training your brain or being like conscious. Okay.
And that is because we have to think negatively to keep us alive. So for example, you would want to think negatively if you were walking down the road, it was dark and you heard somebody running behind you.
Yes.
You need to think negatively because potentially that could be danger.
Yeah.
Which then means you might not survive. So that instinct when you turn around or you start panicking, that is that negative thinking, right?
But that's providing safety for you.
It's providing you to be alert. It's providing you to think, I can hear something's happening. That's a potential threat to me and my survival. So then you check it, and then, then you do whatever you need to do in that situation, right?
This is exactly why Solly is around, guys. Have you heard of the app Solly?
I have.
I fucking love this app. It's like the female safety app.
Yes.
And if you're exactly in that situation, you're walking home at night, you hear something behind you, you don't like feel very like comfortable, very safe. There's a fucking button. You just press on that app and it calls a Solly sister. I am one of a Solly sister now. You call a Solly sister and they can like just chat to you and help like comfort you. And I don't know, you can pretend that you're talking to your dad on the phone or something like that, just to help like get rid of any threats, like potential threats. Like, how great is that?
Yeah,
but
amazing.
that is actually crazy, that going back in time, that's kind of why Solly exists, because we have that natural instinct to think negatively and to feel unsafe.
Yeah, absolutely. And like,
oh my God,
when we were developing, right, if we heard a noise in the distance, it potentially meant that somebody was coming to,
kill you.
to kill you, or to take over where your tribe was or your group of people, right?
My God.
So you had to think negatively, always had to be on. We need it. When you're walking along the road, the reason why you don't step out in front of the bus is because you know that that's a threat. That's your negative thinking, very quickly. And we don't even... a lot of it's like in our subconscious. That you're not going to step out in front of the bus because the bus is going to hit you, and the bus will hit you.
Would that be one of the 83% of negative thoughts?
Yes,
like,
that's like negative thoughts are just like having to like keep you alive, right?
Yeah.
Now,
that's actually really helped me to understand it, to put that in perspective, because I thought, how the hell am I having like 80,000 thoughts a day, and on average 83% of them are negative, and I actually
it's just
your body
wants to keep you alive. It wants you to like, it wants you to
survive and thrive.
Okay.
Yeah.
It wants it to like. It really is every single day trying to make you do that. So by us understanding the makeup of ourselves a little bit more, it can then move us into then how we change our mindset a little bit and try and not bring down those negative thoughts because you need them, but understand them to then make changes that are going to help you feel a bit more content throughout the day. Mm-hmm. So we need those negative thoughts. Now, for example, if you get an email from your boss at work, right, and they say, when those classic emails, and they're like, "Come here, I need to talk to you this afternoon."
Oh my God!
It's like, I think those emails should be banned.
Yes.
Firstly, I think if your boss has something to talk to you, I think they need to call you straight up, or just go over and be like, and say the top line first, and say, "Everything's okay, by the way. I just need to." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but why do bosses need to give that reassurance? I do understand it, because in this same instance, like I'm in a really weird position right now, girls. I've got 4 girls working for me now, and I'm now that figure where if I'm emailing and I'm just like busy and I'm just like being a bit blunt and I'm just like, "Hey girls, we need to have a chat in 5. I just want to let them know that, oh my God, all the tickets have sold out and now we need to do this and now we need to do that, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But I'm so like conscious of how I word things and like adding like emojis and like kisses, which is very much me anyway, sugarcoating everything. But I'm so conscious I have to do that in a professional environment now, because when I had a boss in my last job, if he'd be like, "Rosie, are you free? I need to call you about something," I'm getting sacked. I'm getting fired.
Right.
I'm gone.
And I've
done something wrong.
That's that survival, like coming back in. So like, it's still, that's a threat, right?
Yeah,
that's a threat. It's not the same threat, but it's kind of sits in the same area as a threat. Way back when there was potentially another tribe coming to attack us, right?
Oh my God.
That's a threat. So your threat is that your manager wants to have a conversation with you. You're getting fired, right? So your mind goes, "I'm going to get fired. If I get fired, then that means I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. If I don't pay my rent, then it means that I'm not going to be able to live in my flat, which means that potentially this could happen and this could happen and this could happen," right? So your mind spirals because your mind, because your mind just wants to keep you alive, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard to distinguish between how severe those threats are, right?
Yeah.
But that you need that negativity, because if you just thought, "Oh, it doesn't matter, I'll just do whatever at work," then you would get fired, right? So you have to have that that
For survival.
Yeah, for survival. Now, where they're not helpful is then when they spiral out of control. Mm-hmm. And that can almost be related back to, you know, when you're in the changing room, you're trying clothes on, or you're getting that email.
You literally feel like you're bullying yourself.
Yeah.
Like you're just being horrible to yourself. And I just feel now like there's just no reason for it.
Yeah.
And to get into such like an emotional state and you're in that changing room and you're like, I need to get rid of this. Why do I have this? This is so ugly. I feel disgusting. Like all this, like you're literally like I'd never say that to you, Zoe. I would never say that to my mum. I'd never say that to Henry. I would never say that to someone around me. Why am I saying it to myself? And it's just the most horrible like space, like headspace to be in.
Yeah.
That's when it goes too far.
Absolutely. And like, you know, that is those instincts that come in, but that's also the experiences that you've gone through in your life. That would be things that, you know, if somebody's said something about the way you look, even if that's your mum years ago and they didn't mean to, and they said like, oh, you wearing that?
Oh my god!
Like my mum's. I said to my mum, stop saying that now. She's like, oh, you wearing that tonight?
Don't say that
Obviously,
to me.
I'm wearing that.
Oh my god, it's so triggering.
I'm about to go out the door. Do you know what I mean? But like, that's just our language, and I think we all need to do a little bit better at that.
Yeah.
But
my mum's one was like constantly, it does nothing for you. I'm
Right,
like,
yeah.
their clothes, I haven't hired them to work for me. They're not doing anything for me. I'm wearing them.
Yeah.
And she's like, it does nothing for you.
and that's like
You gave me massive hips, hun. So unless you're going to pay the extra for me to get some like nice trousers, I'm going to have to stick to this Primark shit, okay? Oh, it just triggers me still.
And like that's experiences that they've gone through, right? So they'll more than likely people would have said similar things to them, right? So that's that's learnt behaviours and
Generational trauma.
Yeah, and it's not all just like the survival and the rejection, the DNA. Like all of it is also the experiences that people have been through, right? So it's all kind of blended into one. And even with the work email, you know, there might have been a situation where at work actually you did get really in trouble once.
Yeah.
That's going to stick into your mind, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to think, God, and especially if you've maybe have been let go before, made redundant, that's lowercase trauma.
Yeah.
So you've got like these bits of trauma, these experiences that you go through that all blend into that negative thinking as well, right?
Yeah.
So it can feel super intense, but that negative thinking of, you know, when you are in the changing room and just using that as an example, what happens is we then start to spiral, and we spiral because of what we've gone through. But what you can do is you can speak to yourself and try and bring yourself round. So instead of saying, oh, why are you thinking like this? Or I don't look very good in this. And, oh God, nothing fits me.
Like instead of being frustrated at yourself.
Yeah, because like our main aim should be to try and make our mind a nice place to be.
Yeah.
Because it's just you and your mind.
Yeah.
You can have as many friends around you, as many family, the most incredible communities in the world, right? But if the relationship with yourself, aka the relationship, you know, and it starts in your mind, right? If that isn't a nice place to be and you're not nurturing that relationship, then everything else is going to be affected by it. And all it is, and there's a term for it. So you can have, and I talk about it as my there's a negative voice and a positive voice, right? Sometimes that's what it feels like, where that one where you think, oh, actually I look really good in this top, and then you'll go, oh, but you know your arms look a bit big in it. Right? So that's like the play on like the negative and the positive.
Yeah.
You've got the cheerleader, and then you've got
Literally like the devil and the angel, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I call mine, and I talk to my clients about this and the people I work with, is I call that negative voice the younger version of me.
Oh, right.
And then I call the positive that the person I am now.
Okay.
And that younger voice is coming up because of the experiences she's gone through.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody has repeatedly told her that she doesn't look very good in something, or, you know, maybe she's looked back at pictures of when she thought she looked really good on a night out, and then you look back and you think,
oh God,
that angle. Yeah.
I have that with a picture from uni, guys. I'm actually going to show you because I've come up on, you know, when you get those like pictures of the day.
Yeah,
come up
sometimes
really
they are
recently.
beautiful reminders, but also, you know, when like an X or something pops up,
Ooh,
and you're
no,
like, I thought I
deleted.
deleted that
No,
one.
long gone, honey. I've got this picture called, I think I might have even deleted it. It was so bad the other day. But I basically got this picture where I'm at uni, I'm on a night out, and I'm standing there in what I think is like the most gorgeous dress I've ever worn. It's purple, and it's like kind of like a muted purple colour. And now I've grown up to realise that I suit colour, not muted colours. And it's this muted colour purple. Anyway, it's really low cut, like plunge coming down to my boobies, and on my legs it's like slits open in the middle, which is like super unflattering on my body shape, because I walk, because my hips are wide and my thighs are big. I walk and you're basically about this far away from seeing my knickers and the top is so low down that my boobs are totally out. Anyway, the picture is taken from an above angle. Not my angle. Let me get it up to show you. You can see everything, like everything,
and those are the little things that are gonna be instilled into your mind, right?
Yeah,
of the, you left the house thinking you look amazing, seen a picture and you don't like the picture,
you
right?
absolutely do not look amazing. I can't deal.
See this, right? You know, when this is
Look at everything.
This is sometimes the delusion though that we can sometimes have about ourselves because of those experiences. I think you look lush.
You're a liar.
No, I'm actually not.
You're
I think that's
lying.
I think that's a nice dress. I love how boobalicious it is.
See, I look
can't
at that
see
and
your
I
knickers
think,
at all.
I think I look like trash. Let me see it again.
It's so interesting.
I look awful. My smile's cute because my smile's always been cute. I don't know if you guys can see that from so far away. I might have to get like a tally to zoom in on this really deeply. Oh, wrong person.
I don't think that looks bad.
She's a slag. I kind of love it. But I don't love it. My boob is out. Like my actual boob, like whole boob is out for show. It's not the vibe. See, negative self-talk. Why am I doing it when I actually do love myself and I love younger Rosie? Like
That's what it means. So like that's that.
Still catch myself doing it all the time.
And that's that negative. And that's why I say, like, when I've started to go on a bit of a negative spiral, and especially like with the people I work with, is that negative voice, if you think of it as that younger version of yourself, knowing that the psychology of your mind is to naturally have a lot of negative thoughts, and that version of your younger self is being negative because of past experiences it's been through.
Yeah,
it's scared, right? It's worried, it's fearful for you.
Maybe
all it's trying to do is trying to protect you.
Yeah, I think when I look at that photo, I think to myself like 6 months after that, I'm in a women's suit tending an office every single day. Like perhaps if I were to see that photo or like behave like that, I wouldn't be respected. I wouldn't do well at my job, and I wouldn't. And it is so ingrained, and it's so to do with like society and everything that we've experienced, and the pressures, everything we brought up around. But I wouldn't hire me if I looked at that. And maybe I'm so like career focused now, and at the time of that picture I was just thinking about how I'm getting home from the nightclub. I wasn't actually thinking about any of that maybe I am like kind of bullying myself a little bit to think like that's unacceptable, and to be like dressed and looking like that is totally unacceptable, because I wouldn't survive in my current life now if that's how I was kind of behaving. Do you know what I mean? Would you say that makes sense, or am I way off?
I think you've been quite harsh on yourself. I feel like if you think if you wore that outfit nowadays that you wouldn't be taken seriously, or you wouldn't be able to show up in the job that you do today.
I just wouldn't do it. Like I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. Which is kind of funny because I do get my boobs out online, and like I'm really here for it, embracing what's natural. And you know, I get my boobs out now, but with a totally different objective. Maybe before it was probably different to what it is now, and now it's more so to help women understand that saggy boobs can still be sexy, like that kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And I think like, you know, I don't know like how you're feeling on that day, or if you wore that dress because you felt really good in it, and if you felt good in it at the moment, like that isn't a crime. Like you left the house thinking you felt good. Yeah, we all look back at pictures and say, oh god, what was I wearing? And if it is about your boobs being out, then that is a lot of kind of social constructs that have been built around women.
Yeah.
You know, in one aspect we're sexualized and that's what people want to see. But
I'm totally sexualizing that as well.
But then, you know, don't get out too much. But like that's pressures that are put on you from other people. Like you loved that outfit at the time. You went out thinking that you were confident. You had a good night. Did you have a good night?
Yeah.
Right. So like that's fucking
it's
sick.
enough. Yeah.
Like, that's cool.
God, I feel like I've just had like a little bit of a telling off, but in a good way. Like in a good way. But this is very real for me right now.
And there's some things that I wouldn't wear that I wore when I was younger, but you're just developing, you're understanding, you're like finding your feet with things.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in 30 years time, I might look back and think, oh my God, I can't believe I rocked up in a denim two-piece and TNs.
And I love it. And I'm obsessed with it. Yeah, I hear ya.
Because trends change and you change as a person.
Yeah. So who I was in this picture, like I'm not dissociated, but I know I am someone that's so different now, and in a good way. I wasn't happy back then. These were probably during the toughest years of my life, and maybe more so when I look at that picture. You're right. Maybe I'm not just criticizing what I'm wearing, but it's more about the girl that's in the picture and how I felt at that time than it is about actually what I'm wearing.
Yeah, and it's hard to look back, right, and think, God, I was really going through it then. And you think, oh, poor little me, like I didn't realise how bad I was.
Yeah.
And then when you're out the other side of it, you can look back and think, that was really tough. Like, bless her. And I have this with some, you know, I'll see some pictures of me or people talk about certain points and I'm like, I was so unhappy then.
Oh, God.
And like, poor, bless me for like getting up each morning, going out if I wanted to go out in the evening, painting on that smile, painting on the vibes. And then actually that was a really, really low period. I think that's us again, like that's the side of us where we can be really nurturing to ourselves and we only know what we know at the time. In every single moment. I read this really beautiful quote the other day and it said, you don't know, you've never been in this situation before, so you don't know how you're going to handle it, so stop putting pressure on yourself thinking that you should. So we come into these situations and we think, you know, we've had all this experience, like we've done all this, like simplifying it down to like sitting on and doing this podcast, like you've done so many podcasts before, so have I, but we've never been in this moment together where we're talking about this the way we're talking about it. We've ever been together on a podcast, so this is the first experience we're having of it. So we shouldn't be hard on ourselves of like how it's going to turn out or what's going to happen or how we speak or what we look like, because we've never had this moment before, right?
Yeah, so true.
Even though we've had all this experience with it, you're never going to have exactly the same situation again.
Yeah.
And I think like going back to the that positive and negative voice in our heads that we have, and that younger, if we think of that negative voice as that's psychologically how we're made up, and also blended into that is the experiences that we've been through, the good and the bad. That voice, my little Zoe that gets nervous and gets worried and anxious about things, that is because my makeup is built that way. So I have a lot of negative thoughts because I'm a human, and because of all the experiences I've been through. So it's worried, like that voice is basically wants you to survive, wants to kind of almost keep you in that comfort zone because it's worried if you branch out, something's going to happen. And then you've got that like positive voice that's who you are today. And that voice has to kind of sometimes pull that negative voice along. So it's like sitting there
with you.
And being like in the changing room, being like, right, okay, so you don't like the way that you look at the moment. Okay, how come you don't like the way you look? Oh, because this top says it was a medium and it doesn't fit me. Okay, well, how about we go to a shop where we know that the mediums will fit us? Okay, let's do that.
Almost like being that person or that voice of comfort for yourself.
And
this is why I talk, like how you talk to yourself is so important. And I know this through and through, but I still, you know, like we've just literally experienced a minute ago, will find myself thinking of the negatives or picking on myself and like bullying myself slightly. But yeah, no, the reality is like the way that you talk to yourself is so important. And I do believe that that's something that you can really train yourself to be better at. You'll never 100% like speak to yourself amazingly all the time. Like, it's just not realistic.
Absolutely not.
But if you're looking in the mirror, and my way of learning this, I've talked about this so much before, but guys, it feels cringe and it feels cliche because it's not the normal, but stand in front of a mirror once a day, every morning for the next week, and just say one thing. And I don't care if you repeat the same thing, but just say one thing that you like about yourself. And every time you walk past the mirror, like later on through those days, you start to naturally like sway your eyes over to that thing that you like, instead of constantly like picking and looking at all the stuff that you don't like about yourself. And I found that to really like enable me to train myself to be kinder to myself and to speak more positively, because now it doesn't matter if there's a mirror there, it doesn't matter if it's the morning, it doesn't matter what situation I'm in. I'm like, hold on, like actually that pink jumper you're wearing today is making you pop, like you look good, and you just learn how to get comfortable complimenting yourself. And then, well, from that's where it started for me. It'll be different for everybody, but from that, you can really work on how you speak to yourself with the small stuff and the big stuff and like everything in between. Yeah,
absolutely. And like, you're so right. And if you bring it back to the fact of like, you are never gonna every single second of the day have positive, happy thoughts because your brain is not chemically wired like that. Like that is impossible.
We're here to survive.
We're here like
and thrive.
Survive and thrive. If you link it back to thinking, okay, 83% of these thoughts are negative because that's my instincts, that's trying to keep me alive. Like, you're obviously not every single second going to be having all these harmonious thoughts about you in the world, because your brain literally isn't able to produce that. So what you can do is, when you are having those negative thoughts, and they're always going to come up, and I practice this day in, day out. Like, I read, I research, I work with people. I have a therapist myself because I have to, I love therapy, but I also have to have a therapist myself. I have a coach. I have all of these things that I know make people fundamentally happier, but I still get those negative thoughts because I'm a human.
You have so much of that like knowledge in you.
So much knowledge.
So much, but you still, will be like, oh, your hair looks like shit today, like that kind of thing.
Exactly. And like over the last few years, I've realize what can make somebody's life fundamentally better, and I've implemented those things, and I'm really fortunate that I've understood them and I've been able to implement them. But I still have negative thoughts. I still worry. I still have these anxious thoughts. I still worry about the future. I still think about the past. But what I do now, and this is what I teach people about, is being able to, when that negative thought happens, is to stop yourself in that moment. And when you start doing it, I advise people to like click. So it's just a bit of a poignant moment of like clicking that negative that's about to spiral, and then having that conversation with yourself and treating that negative thought as that younger version of yourself that's a bit scared, that just needs protecting.
Oh, looking after her.
You're just looking after that that negative voice because it's scared, and you're going to use your voice, that positive voice, which is you today, with the idea that things are going to be okay, and you're going to talk that negative voice round, and you're going to say, how come you feel like this? What can we do? Never use the word why. Never ask yourself why, because why has got negative connotations. So if you're saying, why are you feeling like this? It's like, if I said to you, oh, why have you moved that? You're like, oh God, like how come?
Oh, like why shouldn't I have?
Yeah,
that's my immediate reaction.
So it makes you think, oh God, I've done something wrong. But if you say, oh, how come you moved that there? It's an open-ended question. It doesn't feel as directed, and it's like, oh, I just moved it because I was just sat here. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, why have you moved that there? Because it makes you think you've done something wrong. So remove why from your vocabulary. Don't say why.
So funny, because when you meet a child who's like 6 years old, everything they say, like they ask is like, oh, why? And you're like, oh, because the train does this, but why? Oh, because they do this. And that's so
learned
funny.
Language from adults who will then teach them, oh, why have you done this? Or this. If you teach them to use how and what, like, how come the train goes like that? How come this? Like, that's just learned language.
Oh, wow.
But asking yourself what and how, there's open-ended questions for yourself. It also works brilliantly if you're having any type of communication with anybody. So instead of like, I don't know, to your boyfriend, you know, when you go home, well, why have you not packed that? How come you haven't packed that? It opens like it
just feels much friendlier.
It's way friendlier.
Yeah.
It gives the person to have an open-ended question and think, oh, how come I did do that? And not be on the defense. Yeah. So we have to do that with ourselves.
Yes.
So if you catch yourself going, and it does take practice, if you're like, oh, why am I feeling like down today?
Yeah.
Say, no, that's not what we're going to say. We're going to say, how come
I feel down today?
How come I feel down today?
Oh my God, even just hearing you say that, like that just feels so much nicer.
It's
like
so much nicer.
I feel down because like you almost feel like you're in a safe space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself these questions and answer. So you have to think, well, okay, maybe I didn't sleep very well last night. Okay, so that is, we need sleep. And it's having this conversation of like, we're in this together. Okay, so we feel down today. We know we haven't had very much sleep. What can we do today that's going to make us feel a little bit better? Well, let's have a really yummy lunch. And then let me message my best friend and ask her if she can have a call tonight or go for a coffee or whatever. And then you've got, okay, and then what else can you do? Okay, well, you're not actually really in the mood to do X, Y, and Z. Can we push that to tomorrow?
Can you cancel?
Yeah. Maybe we can cancel that. Maybe we can't do that. Okay, so that's what we're working with.
Protecting, like, guys, it's really important to protect yourself in those senses. Like, perform and do things and act upon what's going to be good for you on that day and in that moment.
Exactly.
And, we relate this back to filling your own cup. Like, yes, the Saturday night when you were really drunk with your friends or you were just whatever, you were like, yeah, I really want to go out on Wednesday, let's do it. It gets to Wednesday, like, actually I've had a really bad day, what I need today is different to what I thought I would need on Saturday or what I needed on Saturday. And just listening to that gut feeling and getting comfortable cancelling plans, and that really helps you to like set new boundaries as well, like externally, but also internally you're just looking after yourself a lot better. And it really relates back to this of how you speak to yourself is that defines how you look after yourself, how you speak to yourself, and protecting your time and your plans, but that's more so protecting your energy and your emotions and doing what's right for you in those moments, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, this is really good advice, man. I feel like this is so much stuff that I know but I don't know at the same time. Like, you need to speak better to yourself. Like me, I'm talking to myself. You need to speak better to yourself, and you know that it's okay to cancel plans, but to really understand like all of this behind it, and to taking it all way back when those cavemen and women people were running around the world, like it's really helpful to understand myself a lot better and not even be so mean to myself or like frustrated at myself when I do naturally think negatively in situations where a week ago I didn't think negatively. Why are they still coming up? Like, oh, I'm so good at my self-love, why am I still speaking to myself? Like, even now, why am I getting frustrated that I'm not as good as I was? It's just such a spiral, and it's such a crazy like headspace to be in. And it's so comforting to hear how normal, like abnormal things are.
Yeah. And that's like key of what I always want to try and teach people, is that there is a reason for every single emotional reaction you have.
Yeah.
And it's linked back to how we are made up as humans.
Yeah.
Or the experiences that you've been through, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, like this is all stuff we know, right? And people say, you need to talk to yourself better and be more mindful with your time. But if you just link it back to that psychology and the science behind us, then it gives you a bit more of a cushion and a bit more of a foundation and a reasoning, right? Because it's like, I know that actually rejection feels like this because also like it fucking sucks. Like, do you know what I mean? If you're like broken up with and you want to be that person, that sucks.
That's rubbish. Yeah.
But the reason why it hurts so much and that it feels really clouded is because we have made rejection hurt. We want it to physically hurt. So having that kind of that bigger reason why can then help you understand what you can do with it. And like you say, understand that it's not abnormal how you're feeling. Like, you are actually we're just one big chemical reaction, basically.
Literally. Oh, I love it.
And I would say anything that people are going through, and the reason why I'm in this work at the moment is because like 2 quite big things happened in my personal life, and I remember feeling so shit. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, I am going to learn every single thing that I'm feeling right now. So that's when I started researching anxiety. There was somebody in my life that was going through an addiction problem. So I was learning every single thing to do with addiction, which led to me anxiety, to depression. I was going through quite a traumatic breakup, and I'd realised that relationship was really unhealthy. So I was learning everything about communication, unhealthy love, healthy love, attachment styles. I absorbed every single thing I could.
Like a sponge.
I was just like reading it because I was like, the more I was reading and understanding that it's all linked back to human reactions and emotional reactions, I felt more normal, and I felt that I wasn't actually losing the plot. I was actually just was under a lot of pressure from X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And that then helped me feel a lot better. So if you're feeling anxious about a particular thing, Google's amazing for it.
Yeah.
Be careful on TikTok and Instagram. Just make sure whatever resources you're reading from, make sure that they're credible, make sure that they're trained in what they're doing. But read about anxiety, read about,
like, understand it, like don't run away from it because it's scary and it hurts.
Exactly.
Like, actually tackle it head on. And that doesn't mean with like a bat in your hand. That means maybe with a book.
A book, like podcasts, like anything on, like things on YouTube. Again, make sure that their people are certified.
The Psychology of Your 20s. Have you heard that podcast?
No. Oh yeah, I have actually.
Yeah, big one. I really recommend. I really like it. It's helped me feel a lot more normal in situations that traditionally I wouldn't feel normal in.
And you're so right. Just lean into that. Lean
what's
into
around
those
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, Zoe, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks.
I feel like I've had a little bit of a therapy session. Let's be real. I've healed a little piece of my inner child today, but thank you so much. It's been really great. And guys, you can find Zoe on Instagram. We'll leave your stuff in the bio anyway, but do you want to just let the girls know what your Instagram is?
Yeah, so it's Zoe Mallett, ZoeMallett. And I just create a lot of content around what I've been talking to you about today.
Yeah.
And I've got some new Vox Pop series dropping where I go out onto the street and talk to people about their experiences.
That's what Vox Pop is, by the way, because I learned that today too. Amazing.
Going out and interviewing random people on the street, but
love this.
Come check it all out.
Oh, fabulous. Well, thank you so much. And guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm excited for next week's dilemmas. I have read through some of these already and they are some juicy ones. So I'll see you next week, and have a good rest of your Wednesday. Love ya. Bye.